Blindspot Season 2 premiere in Night So Ransomed Rogue. Gotta admit, I really love this episode. It was a great way to have a premiere for a show that is full on mystery. We got a ton of great answers in this episode, and I love that because there's so many questions. What's the deal with Jane? And by the way, I'm still gonna call her Jane because the whole first season I just used to call her that, so I'm gonna stick with Jane. But we do get some good answers. We get both her real names. Actually, we find out a lot about Jane. We find out that her real name was Alice Kruger when she was younger. We find out that her name was changed to Remy by Shepard, who we also actually get introduced to, and we find out that the guy who saved her is actually her brother. I thought they were just gonna have like a really close friendship thing, and I thought it was gonna be sort of akin to what they did with Oscar, but maybe it would be a little bit different. But it's like, nope, that's actually her brother. So I thought that was really great. We find out that Jane's parents were like anti-apartheid activists, so that's why they were killed, and so that's why she was taken from her home. And they were actually trained basically to fight. Really, they were child soldiers, which is very interesting. I didn't think it would actually go that route, but they were trained basically to be child soldiers. And it was kind of taken to the next level. It wasn't just, oh, here's some guns, be able to shoot this or shoot that. They were like really trained. So they kind of excelled, and then that's how they kind of ended up in Sandstorm, which officially has a name now, which I think is actually a pretty cool name. So Shepard decided to, kind of take them both in, and that's how we had this whole situation. So I love that. We got answers, we got a face. The actress who played Shepard, I've seen her in a ton of stuff lately. It was kind of funny. I was like, I did not expect to see her in this as well. Because she was recently just in like Daredevil Season 2, which came out. So I was like, oh, I saw her there, and I saw her in something else that was brand new, and then she's in this now. So I was like, cool. But I thought it was good. I love the answers that we got. I love the cliffhangers that we got, because we have all this information about Jane and her name and her family and her history. And then there's still the mystery as to what their true purpose is. And we not only get one great cliffhanger where it's either an insane missile or it's a rocket and they're trying to go to space. I'll assume it's a missile, but that looked like a giant rocket ship to me. But also the way it was shaped, it would have to be a missile because it was huge. Someone could pilot it. I don't know. It's really crazy. I don't know. It's weird. But I'm assuming it's some sort of insane missile that can also be guided manually. Like it's almost like a rocket that carries a missile. So I don't know what the deal is there, but I'm excited about that. That was a crazy cliffhanger. And then they throw, I can't think of her brother's actual name, but when Shepard and Jane's brother are talking, it's like, maybe we should activate our mole to make sure that she's telling the truth. And it's like, we won't do that. We'll just wait and see how everything plays out, because otherwise, if we do that, it'll out our mole, way too early, and we have so many plans, we should save it for something much bigger. And then they show off all the characters, and I was like, I thought it was just going to be like, oh, we have a mole, whatever, and it'll be somewhere in, down the line. But then they showed the characters, so it's one of our main characters that is the mole, and that was pretty crazy. And they show everyone too. Like, we've seen all sorts of crazy stuff in the last season where, especially with Reed, where he has all this stuff where he's being threatened by the group. So of course I would assume it's not him, but excuse me, it's one of those weird things where it's like, I could almost see it working where it could either be Reed or Zapata, because of the fact that we don't know really what the mole knows. Like, they could be really low on the totem pole, and they might not even understand everything that's going on with the organization. They could have just been like, hey, you go into the FBI, and that's it. And they have no contact or anything like that. It's just, hey, what do you know? And that's it. But they show the main character, so I would assume they at least know some of the stuff that's going on with Jane and everything like that. But it's one of those things where it's like, we don't know how high up this mole really is. They could have just been thrown in there, and that's what they know of the mission. And then we have, Jane, who knows this part of the mission, because there are clearly only like a set number of people. At least I feel that way. Maybe the whole organization does know everything that's going on with Jane, but it's really hard to tell because they have this crazy organization. So I don't know what, it's kind of hard to tell if the mole knows everything that's going on, or if they were just thrown in, which is why I could see it working as a character we know, or we assume at least at this point, would be innocent. Because they even show Weller, and I'm like, well, why would it be him? But they showed, so yeah, it was one of those things. I don't think it'll end up being Weller, but I could see it actually being Rita Zapata, just because it's one of those interesting things. I think for Weller, it would be really weird. It would have to be an amazing, amazing freaking answer if it actually ended up being Weller, based on everything they put him through, in the first season with manipulating him and all that stuff. So I don't know. That would be insane if he knew that he was being tricked and he had to like play that game the whole time. But I don't think that was really the case. There's just way too many scenes of him, where he's like by himself or with his sister or something, where he's with, in a personal moment where he's freaking out alone because of, what he's heard from his father, like when he found out his dad actually did kill Taylor Shaw. So I highly doubt that it's him. We of course do have two brand new characters. We have the new director, and then we have this new character who comes in this episode, and she's the one who gives the name Sandstorm to this organization, and we find out that she's kind of been keeping tabs on everything for about a year, and then they decided to come in and kind of change things up a bit and say like, hey, we've been keeping tabs, but it kind of sucks now. We got no lead, so I guess we're coming to you guys after a year. So it's, a little suspicious maybe, but there's a mole in there, and it's hard to tell who it could be. You never really know. It makes a lot of sense though. If it was the psychiatrist, I think it would make a lot of sense if it was him, just because he's such a smart character in general. Or if it was Patterson, I don't know. Both of them make a lot of sense because they're both so smart. But I don't know. They also gave the psychiatrist, it was just a thing, but when they showed his scene, he's like writing in a book and then he looks up and he's super calm. I was like, that just makes him look like an evil genius to me. But I don't know. Who knows who it's going to end up being. But I love the fact that they showed everyone. It wasn't just, we have a random mole and they show like the new characters, or maybe characters we don't know too much about. They showed everybody. It was like, alright, it's not going to be Jane, but it's going to be one of the characters. So I'm excited to see that, play out. Who knows if it'll actually be this season. That could be something they drop, in the premiere of this season, and then it doesn't come into play until, season 3 or something. But that I thought was a really great way to end the episode. I thought we had some really good action in this episode as well. When they like first go to get Jane, they have a pretty cool fight scene. Man, my favorite scene in this whole episode was definitely when Jane's brother, when they were in the cop car, or when they were in the truck, and the cop was like, "Hey, I need you to get out of the car." The reason I love that scene so much is because they didn't play music, and I like when TV shows and movies do this, where it's just the scene itself. So it's like all you hear is like it's raining really hard, and it's just him punching people, and all you hear is punching and throwing, and gunshots going off. And I was like, I really love that scene because it wasn't like like let's throw a bunch of cool action music on it or anything. It was just like, here's an awesome scene, and he just went nuts. And he, it was funny when it started off and they did that scene and he kills like all these cops and stuff. I was like, holy crap. And then they get to the hospital and he instantly grabbed the scalpel and he was going to kill the nurse. I was like, man, he's just ready to like destroy everybody. And then they do the reveal at the end. I was like, it kind of makes a lot of sense now why he kind of instantly went to killing everyone, because it's like, don't take my sister from me sort of thing. And I was like, that actually makes a lot of sense now. And I was like, that kind of makes it a little bit cooler. They don't mention if they're twins or not, so I thought that was interesting. And I would assume they aren't actually, brother and sister, but just adopted brother and sister. But I thought that was interesting. I was like, it makes a lot of sense. They grew up, together. They became, like I said, brother and sister. And it just made a lot of sense. It's like, that's why he would kind of lose it and just instantly go, instead of, well, in the situation of the cops, I guess he would have to kill them, because otherwise, of course, they'd be shot up. But for the nurse, it's like, man, he could just knock some people out. Like, it would be totally fine. Then again, if, it's like, oh, she saw your face, she saw Jane's face, it's like, well, I have to kill her just as a precaution. So it's one of those things. But I was like, it makes a lot of sense that he would kind of just go nuts like that, where it's instantly got to kill you, because not only the mission, but it's also his sister. So I thought that was actually kind of cool. But really fun episode. I thought the action was good. It's really fun, but at the same time, there's some sad stuff in this episode because the team is not what it used to be, and I kind of like it just for the sake of this show. But it's like, because I like these characters, it's kind of sad. And the one that gets me the most at this point, at least, is definitely Zapata, because they have the scene early on where it's like, all right, we're gonna send you in, and we'll try to find out who Shepard is and try to get some more information on this group. And so it's like, all right, instead of being with the FBI for 3 months, we'll say that Cade, I want to say is his name, like, hopefully I said that right. We'll say that, he kidnapped me, because that was the whole thing in the last season, and she kind of had to fake that off when she finally met Shepard. So it's like, we'll just say that he kidnapped you, 3 months, you're finally able to get away. And she's like, they won't believe it unless I'm actually in danger. So she's like, just, you have to shoot me. And so she's yelling at Weller to try to get him to actually do it. And Zapata's the one that does it from, just from the car. It's just like, boom, and she shoots her in the stomach. And she just had that blank face, like, it's a clean shot, like, I did it. And you know that it's because she had that much rage in her for Jane. And it seems like everyone else is at least calming, well, I wouldn't say calming down, but is at least trying to make it work. But Zapata's the one who's like, she's more vocal about it. She's the one who I think is the most upset. And even Weller, I think he still has that initial attachment to her where he wanted her to be Taylor Shaw. And, they even talk about that when Jane actually finds out, like, hey, why didn't you ever tell me about the DNA sequencing stuff? Where it's like, oh, my DNA matched, but my teeth didn't, stuff like that. So they had a pretty cool moment there as well. But I'm like, I feel like, he still has that attachment. I think Reed is just trying to not, I think he's just trying not to lose it because of the crazy stuff he went through, like, in the first season. So he kind of knows what he's dealing with, and technically so does Zapata, but Reed was the one who actually went through it. So I think he's trying to just stay calm and be like, all right, I've been threatened, with the woman I love and, her son and stuff like that. So I think he's trying to just keep it calm, and Zapata's the one who's like just out there, and she's saying how she feels, and she doesn't want this to be the way that it is, but it has to be in order for them to succeed. So I love the way they did that scene where she ended up shooting Jane in the stomach, and there's kind of nothing to it. It was like, all right, cool. It helped me vent, like, just a little bit. It helped her vent. So I like that scene as well. But overall, I think this was a great premiere. I think it's, like I said, I think this is a great way to do the start of a second season for a show with so many mysteries. We get to see the leader of Sandstorm. We get, the name is irrelevant, but it is cool that we actually now have a name, because it really was just like this secret organization. So it is kind of cool that they kind of threw a name in there, so we have something to actually call them. We have, like I said, both of Jane's real names, and then we have her adopted mother being, the leader of everything. And then we have her brother, who is going to be, I would assume, a regular throughout maybe the rest of the series, depending on how long he lives. The actor as well, he was just in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so I was happy to see him in this, because, he obviously left the show. But I've been following him. He always ends up in something, and then he leaves the show, and I'm like, he keeps working. Like, every time he leaves, I see a trailer for the next show that I'm going to end up watching. It's like, oh, now he's in that show that I like. He always ends up in something that I'm already watching, so I thought it was kind of funny. But he's a good actor, for anyone who may or may not have any concerns. I can't think of his actual name right now. But he's Australian. That was something I had no idea about. 2 whole shows, and I watched like a random behind-the-scenes thing, and I was like, holy crap, he's Australian. Had no idea. So there's that. Just randomly throw that out there. But I love this premiere. I'm very excited to see what in the world Sandstorm is going to be doing, what the deal is with this giant rocket. That just blew me away. I was like, they're either going to space or they're going to drop a bunch of missiles in different locations, because that's kind of what it seemed like. It could easily be a rocket that flies around the Earth, and then you drop missiles in predetermined locations with, the push of a button or the, pull of a lever or something like that. I'm like, that seems very logical, and that seems like something they would do, although they have, just the way they did it, of course the first season was like, oh, this is the stuff we're doing, and it's kind of to help stop these situations, but of course it's to really bring attention to other stuff so that they can do whatever it is they want to do. And I'm just excited to see where it goes. I thought this was a great premiere. Of course, I want to know what you guys thought about it, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And of course, with it being the premiere, I have to ask what you guys thought about the reveals, all the names and the relationships, and just that extra little bit on Jane. We didn't get too much. It was still basically just, your parents were activists. That's why they were killed, unfortunately. And then you were put into kind of this training camp, pretty much for children to be child soldiers. And that's pretty much how it went. And we also actually got another one. I'm glad I kind of went full circle with the little history thing. They also had the picture from the drive that showed Jane. I would assume this was after an explosion because she was like passed out on the ground. But it's like a photo, a satellite photo of Jane when she was actually fighting in the war. So I thought that was actually really cool. I was like, okay, one of those big things where it's like, what part of her life was the army? You know, like, did she decide to do that before the group, or was that a part of it just solely based on the training? Because we did get that thing in the last season where it was like a part of her training where she was supposed to fake like she couldn't do something in order to like take attention away from something else. Like, I can't really remember exactly what it was, but it was something like that. And so I was like, was all of this just a part of the plan, or was that just a part where maybe she was trying to get away from it, but she already had that training, and just based on her history and her life, she decided, I want to, fight for my country. Well, I mean, I guess she was fighting for the states, which is another thing because there would be a lot of workaround with that. Unless she was in the states, I think you have to be here for 5 years to be a citizen. Um, but it's just another mystery. Like, what part of her life was that? Was that her choice, or was that all just a part of like this crazy grand scheme that they have? So that was another little cliffhanger. I'm glad I remembered that at the last minute. But like I said, I definitely want to know what you guys thought about all the reveals in this one. Of course, what you guys are looking forward to for the rest of the season, and of course, what you guys thought about this, premiere in general. So please comment below, let me know, and of course, thanks for watching.